What's up guys, Mickle here, and in this video I want to do something I don't normally do, but I want to go over this interview with you I just saw because this thing was absolutely fantastic and you guys need to see this. This was from Link2 and they were interviewing Jimmy Valley. He's a lawyer who's been involved in a lot of different high-profile mergers and acquisitions. Guys, this guy breaks down the Ripple SEC case in such an interesting way. This is something you guys are definitely going to need to see, and when it gets complicated, I'm going to break it down, make it really easy for you guys to understand. This is one of the best interviews I have seen on this case in a while, and something I think you guys are definitely going to want to watch till the end. Like always, if you guys are new to this channel or come here all the time, please take a second to hit the like and subscribe button down below. It goes such a long way in helping this channel grow, and it really does mean so much to me. If you guys are ever looking for a good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out the link in the description below. With that said though, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. Like I always say in my intros, guys, if you guys are ever looking for a new place, a good place to buy XRP, make sure to go down into my bio and sign up with Uphold. They are awesome. It's the exchange I personally use when I want to buy some XRP. Make sure to check it out. They are great. So guys, let's jump right into the interview. And if I have anything to say, I'll pause it quickly, make a comment or explain something a little further. But this interview is great. You guys are definitely going to want to watch this thing till the end. Let's start it up.
When you start having agencies of the federal government, like the Securities and Exchange Commission, potentially the IRS, come after an asset like they have with Ripple and indirectly XRP. They knew exactly what they were doing by filing this lawsuit, even if they couldn't ultimately win it. Just basically filing the lawsuit created such a massive claim and cloud on title that it's basically frozen the market, right? It served as pretext for many exchanges like Coinbase, a bunch, I could go on and on, to delist it, right? When they probably didn't have the legal capacity or legal authority to delist. They just point to the case and say, well, there's this ongoing dispute about whether it's a security or not. And if it's a security, we don't have a security brokerage license. We can't be, engaged in this type of stuff. But they used it as pretext to basically shut off the market to retail. And when you step back and you look at that, and also the fact pattern around how it happened. Remember, the lawsuit was filed on December 22nd, 2020. Chairman Clayton leaves the next day. The vote among the 5 commissioners whether to bring the claim was not unanimous. It was a 3-2 vote, with the deciding vote, Chairman Clayton literally running out the door the very next day.
So that's really important and something I always bring up. If XRP was so clearly a security to everyone, like Gary Gensler says, then why wasn't it a unanimous vote? If everything was so clear, wouldn't all the commissioners agree Ripple was selling unregistered securities? Something very important to think about.
That in and of itself is a huge head-scratching type of thing. It's so head-scratching that Grunfest, who was a Stanford law professor at the time, he's also a former SEC commissioner, had written a letter to all 5 commissioners 5 days, I think, before the lawsuit was filed, basically telling them exactly what was going to happen, that they couldn't do it, and how bad it would look if several of the people involved, Chairman Clayton, people in enforcement, left. Okay, that was kind of fact number one that was super weird and concerning. It just didn't make sense to an objective person looking at the case, right?
Yep.
The second thing that happened was obviously people like me went and started, people like Jeremy Hogan went and started pulling precedent on the other ICO cases. And the one that was most germane to the Ripple case was the Kick Interactive case, right? Kick settled with the SEC, basically saying that their token was a security, but they were allowed to go file what's called a Form D after the settlement and basically continue trading in the security, right?
Listen closely to this. This is crazy.
Right? So it's basically like, okay, you got us, it's a security, but we only distributed it to accredited investors, right? So it wasn't a public offering of securities. That's what's against the law, to have a public offering of securities. It was a private placement. There's an exemption from the registration requirement for private placement. For example, if you and I right now start up a business together and we go raise capital from, a group of millionaires, we don't have to go register those securities. And likewise, later on, if we have an M&A transaction and we sell our company and us and our investors end up, having a gain on the security, on the equity that we hold in our partnership that you and I did, if that's being sold to, if it's being sold to L'Oreal or 3M or Coca-Cola, that doesn't have to be registered. Why? Because it's a private placement, right? It's a transfer to an accredited investor. It's a private business transaction. It's not a public thing.
So pretty much all he's saying there is that there are ways for companies to sell securities without even registering with the SEC, and this has been done with tokens before. So prior to something that he's about to talk about, Ripple could have gone down this avenue and just made XRP an unregistered, but call it a security for the SEC's sake, but not actually have to register it, and therefore they'd get around all the BS that would really stop them from registering XRP as a security today and having XRP still work as its full intended use case. Now listen to what he says here, because what the SEC does to shut down this avenue for Ripple is crazy.
The registration regime of the securities laws are intended to provide disclosure and protections to retail investors that aren't accredited, right? The little kids, okay? So that they can go and read, these volumes and volumes of 10Ks and 10Qs, and every time you have a material transaction, you got to have an 8K, all this kind of stuff. There was talk around, and I'm talking like January, there was right around the time Deaton is basically starting to say, I'm going to intervene in this case because something is amiss, because it looks like they're saying like secondary market sales of XRP by little kids who've been holding this stuff potentially since going back to 2014, 2015, are securities transactions. And you remember the Judge Netburn even asked in the very first open conference meeting with the attorneys, the first hearing, it says, it sounds like you're saying that every transaction around the world in XRP is a securities violation of Section 5 of the Securities Act.
When that happened, when Judge Netburn said that, I knew the SEC was screwed. The SEC's been dragging it out since then, delaying this case, but as soon as Judge Netburn made that comment that she didn't believe the SEC's theory on this case, I knew the SEC was in big trouble.
And they kind of didn't really answer that question directly. The SEC didn't. They kind of danced around that. But it's when right around the time Deaton's doing that, Hogan and people like us were looking at the Kick Interactive case going, well, this is all going to wrap up soon, because if it's really just intended for the big kids, right, they're all accredited. If it was just distributed to the big kids by Ripple and Larson and Garlinghouse, there's really been, those were all private placements. They were exempt from the registration requirements anyway. So probably what should happen, if they're right, if the SEC's right and it is a security.
So pretty much since Ripple only sold to private investors, and since they were all accredited, Ripple hardly even broke the law. Maybe there was some other form they had to fill out, but pretty much what he's saying is Ripple did everything right, so he thought this case would wrap up very quickly off the bat. It would be very similar to the Kick case in that Ripple could go to the SEC, fill out a form, and say, don't worry, we're only going to accredited investors, and XRP can continue to trade on the market exactly like it is, but only accredited investors would be able to buy it. Essentially just kicking out the little guy and making it institutional only. But this is where things get really weird.
Is the same thing that happened in Kick Interactive. They should say, it's a security, you pay a fine and file a Form D. Okay. What happened though was super weird. There was actually talk that that exact resolution of the case was going to happen in January and February, within the 30 to 60 days after the case was filed. Okay.
Yep.
And the acting chairman, remember Chairman Clayton is gone now. We don't have Gensler in yet. That took months and months and months for Gensler to get there and then get confirmed by the Senate and all that, because we were going through a transition in administration and everything. But acting chairman, I think her name is Lee. We'll have to confirm that, but she was one of the four that were left, one of the four commissioners that were left, went and changed the rule on contingent settlements in the SEC and basically didn't make the resolution of the Kick Interactive case possible anymore. In other words, they took away the ability to say, okay, you can go now and file a Form D and basically cure the prior, because basically what they were telling Kick is you didn't perfect the private placement because you didn't file a Form D. When that happened, when acting chairman Lee basically changed the rules by herself and said that's not a possibility anymore, it was like, okay, this is weird. And then, then we start getting into, the Hinman emails and whether or not those are going to be disclosed, and the SEC's playing this hide the ball game. It is unconscionable that they're making the claim, the SEC is making the claims that they're making in the case, and they are not providing the supporting memos that analyze whether or not Ethereum, Bitcoin, and XRP are securities. Those memos exist. We know from the timeline that's going around that those memos exist, but they're not turning them over. Why not? They absolutely should. This is their whole thought. This is the deliberative process that they undertook, right? They should be turning that over. They should not be hiding behind this. Obviously, I think all of our guts are telling us correctly, I think, that there's something in there that basically says XRP is not a security, right? It would totally end the case.
Are you saying?
So I thought that was absolutely awesome. He breaks things down in a perfect timeline. It's so easy to follow. What he pointed out there in the middle, and this was huge, was there actually was a different avenue this case could end. And halfway through the case, the SEC, essentially a single commissioner, pulled it off the table. And this was the avenue where Ripple could say, hey, we'll only go to accredited investors. We'll only do that from now on. XRP does not have to be registered as a security. We'll just make sure that if we sell it, it's to accredited investors. The SEC ripped this off the table. And guys, that's when he said, that's where I also believe things started to get very weird in this case. That's when the SEC went full on defensive, trying to hide all their evidence in the past, their decision-making process on what XRP was. The SEC knows they're in big trouble in this case. They are acting very strange, and I think that was perfectly laid out by Jimmy Valley in this interview. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this interview. I thought it was excellent. Make sure to like and subscribe. It helps me out so much. And for now, Mickle out.